My name's Dave DeBoe, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Welcome back, everyone. Today's special guest zooming in all the way from Albany, New York. We've got Vitaliy Volpov, who is a very successful real estate entrepreneur. He's kind of achieved the dream. He has replaced his JOB income with income from his revenue properties, and he had a pretty good job. He is a professional lawyer. He's a lawyer by trade. That's what he went to school from. And I'm really interested in diving into a conversation with Vitaliy because he's got an interesting background. He came to the States with his family, I believe, in 1995. So he's a first generation newcomer. He took the education, get a good job route, found out about real estate, and really that ignited his passion. That's what he's all about these days. So Vitaliy, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
It's a pleasure, Dave. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about our conversation.
Likewise. So give us a quick snapshot of what your real estate investing life looks like. What's your main focus? What's in your portfolio at this point, mid 2024?
Sure. Yeah. So right now, I own with a business partner 172 rental units, and those are comprised of primarily kind of small to medium multifamily properties, all local to the area that I'm in, which is around the capital of New York State. And, they range from anywhere from 3 units up to a 21 unit apartment building, which we're working on now, which actually will bring me up to something around 190, whatever it is, 190 some odd units. And, I've been doing this for now 13 years. Started investing very small, just like most people, in 2011, and slowly built up that portfolio. And then in the last probably 5, 6 years, it hasn't been so slow, primarily because we started doing private financing and getting into the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat strategy.
Very, very cool. And you also have a brokerage, if I'm not mistaken. So explain me a little bit about that. How did that come
Sure.
into
Yeah.
being?
So interesting thing or fact about New York State is if you are a lawyer, you have an attorney license in New York, you can actually kind of skip the process a little bit in becoming a real estate agent, real estate broker. It's almost like that monopoly thing where skip go and just, collect $200 right away.
Yeah.
So you don't have to take any additional classes, have any other, specializations. You just basically go and apply for a license, and you don't even start out as a salesperson. You actually jump right to a broker. So you can, in fact, right away become an owner or part owner of a brokerage. So obviously, because I went to law school and I was an attorney at the time, it was a no-brainer for me since I was involved in real estate already. So I think it was around 2017 when my business partner and I, who's been a friend of mine for a very long time, kind of put our heads together and we were just chatting about it. And what we were doing at the time is he was investing on his own. He had a salesperson license. He was under somebody, another broker for a while, and he was mainly using just for his own investments. And I, as an attorney, had a broker's license, but I didn't think about starting my own business or anything like that. Again, I was
Yeah.
using it for my own purchases. And so then we talked, and he's like, there are a lot of leads and properties that we come across that maybe don't fit our criteria necessarily, but they're off market. But why are we giving that away when we could actually set up a brokerage, start bringing on some agents who'd be happy to take those leads and list them on the MLS? Clients will be happy, and we can make some extra income as like a side hustle. So that was the genesis of it, really,
Yeah.
and it's worked out perfectly because there's a synergy between investing in real estate and then representing other investors who want to invest in real estate, and that's kind of our focus with our brokerage here locally.
Yeah. And it kind of comes full circle. It's you're creating your own little game of Monopoly, so to speak, right?
Exactly, right. Yeah.
Okay, very cool, Vitaliy. Now tell us a little bit about um, the kind of deals that you guys are finding and looking for. It sounds like you do a lot of creative owner financing type deals. Is that your exclusive focus these days?
So there's a mix. So we've done pretty much everything, and we've tried all different avenues to try to source our deals. I would say, I think It's total number that I have in terms of buildings. It's probably like something like 30. And we've sold a few off along the way, but so probably 35 to 40 transactions that we've done in the last 6 years where we've actually purchased them, took title to them. And I would say maybe 10% of those were from the MLS. And in our area, just like many other locations around the country, those last few years, like 4 or 5 years especially, have been very competitive and very difficult to find properties on market on the MLS. So we've had to do some of those creative, sourcing of our deals. And the first thing that we started doing is obviously, as a lot of people do, and I know you've talked to other guests on your podcasts about doing this, is basically sending out direct mail and possibly doing some skip tracing and doing cold calling to potential owners. We've done
Mm.
a lot of that over the years. And it actually, earlier on, it was easier to do before things got more saturated because even that got saturated. But
Yeah.
it allowed us to kind of start building some traction with leads and connections and things like that. And we were able to get a bunch of deals that way. And then as things became more competitive and more difficult, at the same time, we were expanding our sphere of influence. So as I mentioned with the brokerage, we started bringing on additional agents and we grew that to something roughly 30 agents on the team,
Wow.
some of them part-time, some of them full-time, but
Yeah.
most of them were investors themselves. So they were people who knew other investors, who were going to the same meetings, who kind of it just kind of builds on itself, and then it became more of like a referral situation versus even just direct marketing to people. We still do some of that, but we really haven't needed to the last couple of years, which really saved us because I get mail now from would-be investors and newer investors about my properties and they want to
Right.
buy them. So I see what they're putting out there these days and it's very saturated. There are quite a few different people with trying these different strategies. Some people send you actual offers. Some of them just say, please call me. I'm a local investor and so forth. But we've tried all of that. And lately we have done a few owner finance deals as well and we've even gotten into some subject to stuff. It's not our bread and butter necessarily, but we've done
Mm.
quite a bit of that. And and talking about synergy again with the brokerage, we also have kind of another side arm of the business where we do some wholesaling as well. So where deals don't make sense necessarily for us for one reason or another, but they make sense to one of our investor buyers, we can put that together even if it's not going through like a traditional brokerage route. So
So
we've been
that
very,
brokerage really kind of opened up a whole bunch of doors for you that you weren't expecting
yeah,
at all
no,
when you first got your license, right? I mean, it,
absolutely. Right.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
very interesting. No, that's very cool, and it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, so not so much owner financing deals, but definitely off market deals is your bread
Yeah.
and
A
butter.
few owner financing. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
we've done four at this point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very, very cool. Now, you came to the States in 95, is that correct, Vitaliy?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
old were you when you moved over?
I was almost 13. I was
Okay.
12, turning 13.
And where did you and your family come from originally?
So I was born and lived in Belarus, which
Hmm.
I'm sure it's been in the news. People probably are more familiar with it now because of the war that's going on between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
And it essentially borders both of them, both of those countries. And it was one of the former Soviet Union republics. Soviet Union, as people might know, broke up and was dissolved in 1991.
Hmm.
And, there was a lot of turmoil that went on, both in my home country, Belarus, but also in the other republics, former republics that became their own countries. And, it was definitely not the easiest place to live. It was, and I was young, obviously, but I remember vividly a lot of the hardships that myself and my family members and others, other people, citizens who were living in those countries had to go through. So when people talk about the stereotypical issues with communism and they talk about what would go on and what happened in those countries, it's actually was my personal experience.
Yeah.
So I do recall when I would get sent like as a 10-year-old kid by my mom to go get some bread and milk, and I actually would stand in that line with 100 people in front of me for like an hour and a half to get that stuff. So, you know,
Big,
that was
big,
our
big shift
experience
moving to
there.
the States, I would imagine. That must, the impact must
Oh
have
yeah,
been
yeah.
mind-boggling for a 13-year-old.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, I talk a little bit about that on my YouTube channel and other interviews that I've done. But yeah, I remember we flew directly from Moscow to JFK
Yeah.
and, came out Our family who had moved here a couple of years before us, so some of my uncles and aunts moved here before us, greeted us, and then they took us, you know, got in the car pretty much right away, drove to their house where we stayed for a while until we could find our own place. But I remember that night when we got to Albany, to the capital of New York, and they said, you know, my uncle came out, to, hey, how's it going? How are you guys? Hugs, everything. Are you guys hungry? He said. And I said, I thought to myself, I don't think I respond. My parents responded, I think, and they said, we sure, but what do you mean? It's like midnight, right? It's like dark outside. It's midnight. It's like, well, you know, we have 24-hour supermarkets here. Let's go. Let's get food. And it was such a like a shock and such a different feeling, you know, being here and then
Yeah.
going to the supermarket and then walking in and seeing the shelves filled with all kinds of stuff, all kinds of food and everything else. And it was just, yeah, and it was very, I don't even know, profound moment for me, I guess, that really kind of started changing the course of my life, knowing where I was now and the opportunities that this country provided. So I'm very grateful for that.
Most definitely. What I want to unwrap a little bit, Vitali, is the whole concept of this American dream, North American dream. A lot of people that are born and raised in North America know nothing different. They have
Yeah.
no concept of how a lot of the rest of the world lives. How has that been an advantage for you coming
Mm.
in, having that life experience, and then seeing the abundance that's available if people just take the blinders off?
Yeah. I think what it did for me is it gave me focus and it gave me the motivation to work harder than people who were born here probably
Yeah.
because they didn't know the hardships that I knew, that my family knew. And
Hmm.
so that in itself kind of allowed me to get ahead and get a step on the competition with a lot of the things that I ended up getting into. And, you know, obviously real estate wasn't the plan at all until later on in my life.
Yeah.
So initially it was more about get your education,
Get that
go
good
to
job, get
college.
that profession. Yeah.
Yeah, get
Become
a
the
professional
lawyer,
degree.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of immigrants do share. A lot of the Russian or the former Soviet dissident community here in America that I know, there's a very strong focus on you have to become a professional of some sort, you know, whether it's
Mhm.
a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, computer science. It's like those were the professions that the families kind of traditionally wanted you to enter, and that's what I ended up doing. But you know, as we were kind of discussing, like my life took another path, you know, another
Yeah.
direction.
So what sparked the whole real estate interest in the first place, Vitaly?
Yeah. So let me just kind of the chronology of it was like this. So I graduated Albany Law School in 2010, and I started working right away, pretty much. Uh, I had a job lined up after law school. I did pretty well in law school, but if people know anything about legal profession, how law schools work, a lot of it, number one, depends on what tier school you go to in terms of what kind of what kind of salaries and what kind of benefits you might be able to get right away as a young attorney, right? So tier one law schools are, you know, like the top ones, you know, like you're talking about Columbia, NYU, obviously Harvard, all those different number one law schools,
Right.
the top 50. And those are essentially you're going into the big city law firms. You're making six figures plus right away. There are huge bonuses. This was the culture at the time. Whereas Albany's teetering always between that third tier and second tier. So essentially it's below 100, so it's somewhere lower down than 100 at the time. And so in order to get those types of lucrative jobs, if that's what you were going for, right, in big cities, you have to be in the top of your school. So you have to be in the top 10% or better, right? So for me, I did pretty well. I was in the top 10%, but even then, at the time I was getting out was right after the recession and where the market tightened up for everything, including legal jobs. And so I ended up getting a job, which was a very prestigious and a good job, but the salary was, you know, was $76,000 when I left law school, right? With $150,000 of loans.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was one of those things where, okay, you know, it's not terrible, but I also know some plumbers and electricians who never went to college, let alone law school, that are making the same or more than me,
Yeah.
you know, starting out as an attorney, right? So right away, I had some thoughts about, okay, this is the reality. This is how it works. This is what I can reasonably expect, I'm not making a surgeon salary here. It's not going to be 300 or $400,000 a year. What can I do to enhance my earning potential, and where can it lead? And I wasn't thinking financial freedom at the time, right off the bat. I wasn't thinking about any of those things. It kind of evolved and morphed into it. But my first thought was, okay, I work for a year, which is what I did. And now it's 2011, and I'm in a serious relationship with my girlfriend at the time, was my wife now. And we were talking about, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to rent? Do we want to buy a single family house? Because now we could sort of afford it. It would be a tight one, because tight on the budget, because I'm paying pretty high student loan payments every month, and so is
Right.
she. But what do we do? And I don't recall exactly where the idea came from, whether it was because I read one of the books. I was, pretty much quite a bit into reading, or whether it was a family member, someone else said, hey, why don't you consider buying a house where you live in, it's like a multifamily house where you live in an apartment and you rent out the other apartment, and see where that goes. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. And so that year, I found a realtor. I wasn't confident enough in my own skills at the time to buy my own house. So that very first purchase was with a buyer's agent.
Yep.
And we shopped around, we found a house. And then from there, it just started growing and building my confidence. And that was, when I first got into that two-family house, living on one side, learning how to be a landlord, how to manage tenants, how to deal with those types of issues, I started thinking bigger. And I'm like, okay, so now maybe I can buy a couple more houses, not live in them, just rent them out as investment properties, and I can add to my, bottom line, to add to what I'm making as an attorney, as my salary. And then things just grew from there, from 2011 onward, where eventually the investment side of things overtook what I was making as an attorney. Even though, obviously, as you progress as an attorney, you start making more money, all that, but it wasn't even close. And on a time value basis, where you're talking about hours to dollars, it wasn't even close. Like
Yeah.
there were times, other inflection points that I can talk about, but there was one instance where my wife and I ended up buying a four-family house, and then we sold it 3 years later for, I think it was $160,000 profit. And my personal investment of time in that property was something on the order of maybe 10 hours a month,
Yeah.
right? So for a 3-year period, I invested 120 hours a year, and I made a profit back of, I don't even know what it adds up to on a dollar
Hourly
per hour
basis.
basis. But then I
Yep.
look at my attorney salary, and I'm like, this isn't even close. Okay, so now I know which path to take.
Nice. Nice. And as we're wrapping things up here, Vitaliy, I know you've got a YouTube channel that you started a while ago. That's kind of a passion project for you. Tell me a little bit about that and what impact that's had on your business. Um, what changes you've seen with YouTube? Because I know myself and other people, we've taken a crack at YouTube channels and
Sure.
this and that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I started it in 2019 in July. So it's been about, 5 years now.
Yeah.
And, again, it was one of those things. I'm a multi-passionate person. So I do pursue a lot of different things, as you can tell, going from lawyer to real estate investor to this to that. But it's a challenge, and I enjoy new challenges for myself. So that was part of the reason. But the other thing was, in the very first video I put out, was it was a take on a New York State law that just changed, and it related specifically to real estate and specifically to landlords.
Mm.
And so I wanted to share some of that knowledge and some opinions. Obviously there's a fair amount of opinion when you're talking about legal interpretation. So I wanted to share that and help people. That was my first thing, first sort of foray into YouTube. And that video has done pretty well. And it's still, to this day, I go back to it and I'm like, wow, how is this still getting views? But it is. So it's slowly growing, and just the number of views that it gets. And then I started getting to more of, okay, well, let me see if I can share some of my knowledge about real estate investing and what I've done along the way. And as things evolved, there were different things that I shared and talked about. And, for me, it has helped me also kind of crystallize and clarify for myself what is the process, what works and what doesn't work. And I've met quite a few people as a result of just posting videos on YouTube that we ended up doing business together, or they learned about me. They ended up joining our real estate brokerage as agents and investors. So it has helped. It had a lot of sort of tangential benefits, not necessarily direct benefits from YouTube. Like I'm not Graham Stephan and meet Kevin making, hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars from YouTube. It's not like that at all,
Right.
because I think there's been a lot of reasons, but a lot of people are into it now. There's a lot of interest. There are a lot of
Have
podcasts.
you noticed a decline in viewership and views? Like the algorithm seems to be a little bit different these
It
days.
has changed. Yes, I do think it has changed and has impacted. I just think it's the new people and the amount of information has already been shared
Yeah.
that you have to find an angle to tell people something different than what everyone else, 100 other videos or podcasts or blogs are already talking about or have talked about.
Yeah.
So it needs to be something more to keep viewers' attention and interest. And it's hard to find that. It's not necessarily, I think bread and butter investing that I do and that you do is very financially lucrative. And I think if people learn it really well, they can do very well. But it's, in terms of what's sexy in on YouTube, it's probably not that, like Airbnb arbitrage was like a huge thing a couple of years ago. And,
Yeah.
people have made fortunes just talking about it and growing their followings on YouTube. But yeah, it
Yeah.
depends
No,
on what
okay.
your goals are.
It depends on the goals. Yeah, it's a very good credibility booster, that's for sure. As we wrap this up, Vitaliy, we were talking a little bit offline about, when is enough kind of
Mm,
thing. And I know you've got
yeah.
a business partner it sounds like that person's go, go, go and wants to
Yeah.
just keep exploding
Yeah.
the portfolio. You're at a stage now where you're doing very well, you're
Yeah.
comfortable. I'm wondering, with your background coming from Belarus to the States and your whole family background and whatnot, what's your perspective on this grow at all cost mentality a lot of
Yeah.
Americans and North Americans have?
I I reject it personally. I don't think it's necessary. I think you need to have a goal in mind, and the investing, the properties, the real estate, or any job or anything else you do should be a means to that goal, means to an end. It should not be the end in itself. And a lot of investors, especially ones that portray themselves on social media as, superstars, their whole thing, and maybe it's the persona, maybe it's reality, I don't know, but they all about the next thing, the next deal, the next $1 million, the next, what's next. That's what they always focus on. And for me, it has never been that. I think it's extremely important to stay grounded and to like know what you're doing this for. And now, I'm 41 years old now. I was in my late 20s when I started, right? And I have a family. I have a 2-year-old daughter. She just turned 2. Like,
Nice.
I don't need to keep grinding and keep, because it's still a grind, even if you're a very successful real estate investor, and you've got a big team, which we do, and you have the people that do the work for you and maintenance guys and all that stuff, but you still have to be involved actively and manage all that stuff and be involved in meetings and phone calls. And there's this problem and that problem. And at some point, I think it becomes enough. Like you have to be comfortable with yourself to say, okay, I have plenty to live on. As long as you're not inflating your lifestyle, which I'm not big into that either, you should be able to say that at some point, whatever that point is, you have to figure that out for yourself. But you can reach that point and say, okay, that's good. That's it. Okay, let's slow down. Let's focus on the things that are more important in life. And that's where I am at right now. And I'm very thankful and grateful for where I've been. But I don't think I don't need to buy a 100-unit apartment complex next year or then move it up to 200 or anything like that. I'm very comfortable and happy with what I've done.
Fantastic. Vitaly, if people want to connect and find out more about you, where should they go?
Sure. Yeah. Just search for Succeed REI on YouTube, and you guys can check out my YouTube channel there. You can also find me under the same moniker on Facebook as well. I have a Facebook page. But yeah, Succeed REI. You can go, you'll find my YouTube channel, subscribe, drop a note or comment on a video, and we'll connect. And I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to do business together, or if there are any questions, legal questions, or anything like that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. This has been a lot of fun.
Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks so much.
Everybody, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.